Welcome to today's Master Coaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz. My name is Bob Bertucci, joined by fellow Master Coaches Kathy George, Fran Flory, and Bill Walton. Before we get started with the show, I'd like to just take a minute to recognize one of the top coaches in the country that has just passed away this week, Barry Goldberg. It's very sad. He lost his battle to cancer at the age of 61. We all know him. We all know he's one of the nicest, friendliest guys there ever was. Barry spent 34 years at American University, earned 10 Coach of the Year awards, 16 Patriot League championships, 18 times he went to the NCAA tournament. He was just a great coach and a great individual. Had over 812 victories in his career, and unfortunately his career ended sooner than anyone wanted it to. As a Hall of Famer at American University, they just honored him by naming the new court in the Meltzer Center, the Barry Goldberg Court. And I thought that was really nice, for American University to do that for him. His whole family's involved in volleyball. Bonnie and Barry started the annual Capitol Hill Volleyball Classic in 2007. Both his son and daughter are involved in volleyball, both out in the West Coast, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. His other son was a lacrosse player at University of Richmond. So he left, a great family, and that's his legacy, and that's going to live on for quite a while. We're very sad and sorry and going to miss Barry quite a bit. So on a happier note, our topic for today, Volleyball Magazine, its growth and influence in the sport of volleyball. Our guests today are Lee Feinswog, editor of Volleyball Magazine, and Wade Garard, who for a number of years headed up Firstpoint Volleyball, leading the growth of men's collegiate volleyball across the country. All right, and we're happy to have both of you guys on. Welcome, Lee. Welcome, Wade. Thanks for being with us.
Well, can I start by saying that Barry Goldberg was like one of the great guys in all of volleyball. And what made him even more special for all of us who knew him was his sense of humor. I mean, you always got a laugh when you talked to Barry, whether it was about a match he just played that he won, he lost, visiting in the club circuit. But I got to tell you, when Russ Rose retired after the I guess it was the 21 season, and I called Goldberg, and he answered the phone, and he goes, "What do you got?" And I said, "Congratulations." I said, "Why?" I said, "Now you're the best active Jewish coach in college basketball in volleyball." And he just fell out. And I had a laugh about thinking about that. Now I have not called Sean Kupferberg from Howard yet, but I think he takes over the mantle. So, but Barry was wonderful. I'm glad I got to visit with him in Omaha when he came for the Final Four in the ABCA convention.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to start things off, Wade, Lee, with a question about Volleyball Magazine. Lee, Volleyball Magazine started in 1976, was later purchased by the late Ed Chan and yourself. Give our listeners a little background and history.
Yeah, I think he left off like 50 years there.
We only have an hour show.
So the magazine, is in its fifth decade. But when we purchased it, it was most recently owned by a group out of Boston called Matador. And they owned a bunch of other magazines as well called, they had something about bird watching. It was a group that owned magazines, and the plus side to them was that they could get advertisers to appear probably in multiple publications. That's as best I can figure it. But they were basically running Volleyball Magazine into the ground. And Ed, who was the best volleyball photographer ever, who lived in San Diego, and I, who live in Baton Rouge, just a few miles away from Fran Flory. We don't see each other ever in person. She sees my wife way more than whatever, but we're right nearby. There you go. Budding pickleball stars, right?
Yes.
Right, hey,
Absolutely.
You guys didn't know that. Fran is an up-and-comer pickleball player. So we were both freelancers for the magazine, with other people. And we had actually talked about starting a rival publication, a website, because going print was obviously not the way to go. And the old, they were lying too. They were saying how they had 15,000 subscribers for the print magazine. It wasn't even close. Might have been 5,000. So we had this plan put together, me and Ed and a few other people. And Ed called me. And I remember if he could stay on the phone and going, Ed never calls me because he was a real quiet kind of guy unless you knew him really well. Ed, what's happening? He goes, we can buy Volleyball Magazine. You want to buy it? And I said, yeah. He said, okay. I said, all right, get back to me. And that was it. And it wasn't until years later did I even know how much he paid for it. I never asked him, and he never told me. I handled all the other stuff. But the first thing we did, and this was in 2016, was kill the print and go strictly digital with volleyballmag.com, which is where we are and have been since basically right before the Olympics in 2016. And we finally, at this past AVCA convention, actually had a print magazine. We did it in conjunction with the AVCA as part of their program. It was pretty exciting. I actually have one around here. I would have brought the prop sooner if I'd remembered, but throw things around. Actual old, and we use the old timey Volleyball Magazine logo.
Yeah.
We actually, and it was not pre-printed. We went to press late Sunday night after the Saturday regional finalists were announced. So we'll be doing that again in the future and expanding that a little bit now that we have big time publishing magnate Wade Garard on board. So and there's been different ebbs and flows and we've evolved. It's been 7 years almost since Ed and I bought it. Ed unfortunately died in September of 21. He was covering AVP Chicago. So I've been flying solo with a great group of people who helped me since early September of 21. And so it's really cool to have some new people on board in the form of Wade and Gordan Redzic, who's our, other big investor.
Well, exactly. And hearing about that, I'm sure our listeners don't totally get what just happened here, but there was the announcement today of you Volleyball Magazine partnering with Wade and Gordan. And so we just tell us a little bit about that and what that partnership looks like and what we can expect in the future from that.
Wade, I'll let you handle that one.
We're going to let Wade go first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Wade, go ahead. We've heard way too much of Lee.
Well, thanks for having me on. Though a little pickleball story from Fran might be nice as well before we're all out. But Gordan Redzic and I have known each other for the last 4 years as fellow board members on the Firstpoint Volleyball Foundation board, and with his volleyball background and my way back journalism background, Gordan and I always have had opinions and hopes for the kind of coverage of this great sport that we all want, and began to develop a level of admiration for Lee and this sort of feature journalistic coverage of the game where you can really read about how people make a win happen, how a league comes together, how an athlete felt about a performance. And that's what you get from Volleyball Mag. So we've been a fan for a long time. And then we began some discussions months ago about what we might do working together. And today we were pleased to announce our investment and now as equity partners with Lee to expand coverage of the sport with Volleyball Mag. So it's an iconic brand, and if you grew up with this sport, you grew up with Volleyball Magazine, and so we're excited to be involved.
Remember also in my locker room, I'd always have all the, you know, all your magazines out there so that the team would read it, you know, and just get more, you know, more immersed with what was going on. So definitely.
I still have every print copy that was
I still do too.
1970, 76.
Yeah.
Well, as an aside, we own every print copy from the formation of the magazine. Unfortunately, they're in 2 big boxes in Julie Chan's garage, and she's preparing to move. And we're trying to, we're actually getting him shipped to Wade's house. He doesn't know it yet because I have no room for it. And we want to digitize them, but to digitize 40 years worth. Now we have a lot in our website. If we have quite a bit in the archives, but we need to get all of that stuff out there. One thing Ed was great at was he would go randomly pick out an old magazine, find a story, and he'd go, "This is cool," and he'd scan it, and then he would actually type it himself. And we scan the art and we run it. And it was pretty interesting. We had good page clicks from it. People like reading the old timey stuff. So there'll be a time in the near future, Wade will be out there in his garage somewhere, pulling stuff out and filling out a magazine. There you go.
Yeah. So Lee, first off, and Wade as well, thank you all for what you do for our sport. You know, Lee and I go way back, and way back in the 80s, Lee was covering volleyball in Baton Rouge, and nobody else was, and added credibility to the sport in this area of the country for sure. And it's continued to do that with club and tournaments and doing all kind of stuff. My daughter played in his club, so his legacy will live way beyond where any of us will survive this world. And I appreciate it. And Wade, I know you've made that significant contribution as well. And I guess, Wade, you mentioned some expanded coverage that you expected. Where do you see this going? How are you going to expand? Where are you going with this?
Well, it's an exciting time for volleyball, number one. I think the current we're all rowing with is exciting. I have a daughter who plays and who's 23, and you just think 12 years ago at age 11 to now, with the contributions of many of you on this Zoom call, the exposure that women's collegiate volleyball is getting is unbelievable, really. It's super exciting. So you've got the growth of the sport, both on the boys and men's side and the exposure of the women's side here in North America. And then it's the global following of high-level volleyball. And so you'll see expanded coverage internationally in Volleyball Mag. And I think with the ongoing focus on college volleyball in the U.S., there's a global audience for that. So we see opportunities all around. But it's a great time for the sport right now. And so expanded coverage is the goal. Yeah.
And, you know, at the same time, not only is the sport on a remarkably fast, you know, high-arcing up escalator on all fronts, you know, from boys, girls to men's, women's, international, amateur, but you know, we've got 3 pro ventures going on in this country. You've got Athletes Unlimited, which is currently on its tour, hitting mostly Big Ten schools. But I think tomorrow they're at Kentucky, and that's actually on SEC Plus, just for example. And then Big Ten Plus is picking up that. And that's like the Athletes Unlimited team that's doing that is a bunch of all-stars. You've got an organization called LOVB. I mean, I know you guys have had people from all these things on there on your on this weekly buzz, but you know, LOVB is making strides in different ways and has eyes on doing a pro league. And then there is the Pro Volleyball Federation, which is already in progress, has announced, you know, 3 or 4 of its franchises, has owners, a completely different model. Of the 2 people there, by the way, and I don't know if you know this, Fran, but there's Dave in Columbus, and then there's Stephen Evans in Dallas. And you know, Stephen Evans is from Central and went to LSU.
I do, actually. I do. They came and met with me, and happy that Kathy is a huge portion of this new league. She's going to be pretty instrumental in it.
I was gonna get to that, but
sorry.
but I mean, but just to take
Thanks,
what Wade said and then add on to it, you not only have the existing things, but you've got these ventures coming on. And then we have a collaborative and an expanding partnership with Volleyball World, which puts on, which televises, you know, all of the international stuff, but actually conducts all of the international pro beach events now. So avenues that we can expand to are seemingly endless. There's just so much more that we can do. And in my case, I've been especially since Ed died, relying on just a handful of reliable and great freelancers. But now with the resources that we have through Wade and Gordan, we'll be able to even do more. So
it's exciting.
Yeah, I think you also see, lastly, some expanded youth coverage as well. I mean, I like what we're doing now, but there's just so much storytelling that is warranted in all these age groups.
Yeah, we've got the best person in the business for club and high school coverage in John Tawa, who formed prepvolleyball.com way back in the day and does a couple of stories each for us each week, and has so much research and so many names in it. And one of our short-term goals is to get people to work with John, because he too is covering massive amounts of this by himself. So, and my joke is there's not enough Lee to go around. There's not enough John to go around. And now we're going to get people to help both of us. And I'm really fired up about the part where we're helping Lee.
Yeah, since you guys are going to expand, I mean, this is not just a USA market. This is a worldwide market. How are you covering Asia, South America, Puerto Rico, Europe? I mean, where do you got the staff and the people? How are you going to do that?
Well, I don't know that we'll specifically cover them, but what we want them is to come on board and read our stuff. I mean, if you think of the number of volleyball fans in Brazil, China, Japan, and Europe, and you know, there's a modest amount of people from around the world who read the site. We can go on it every day and see that they've been there, but we really want to tap into those markets. And I'd be lying to you if I said I know how, Bill, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, we look forward from input from all of you on more and better ways to expand coverage of this sport. And without a doubt, we will cover leagues around the world. So you just look at not just the audience, but I mean, that Rupe Prime League had 200 million viewers in 6 weeks, you know, so I think there's just this thirst for the global audience to find our content and for us to uncover more of these stories. I think that's the compelling theme to me. Is there's lots of ways to find scores. There's automated ways to find content, video, clips. Volleyball Mag will be more engaging. So we're going to be cognizant of all those audiences, the youth audience, in different formats. But we are committed to this notion of telling the story of how that athlete got to that level of play. Or how did that fit set unfold? How were those adjustments made by that coach? And so we're going to cover those type of stories around the world.
Well, talking about coverage, that moves us to, we are 18 months, maybe less, from Paris Olympics. And then, of course, 4 years later, we're hosting here in LA, the Olympics. I know you've got to be on your planning board somewhere. There's got to be an Olympic section. How and what are we going to do for covering the Olympics?
Well, it's funny you say that, Bill. For starters, I fully plan to go see the Parasites in 2024. And of course, one of those Parasites, thank you, I'll be here all week. The beach volleyball will be played at the base of the Eiffel Tower. I have no intention of being there. I'm going to be indoors watching men and women. But we've started our Olympic tracker for the beach. You know, the indoor stuff is really, it doesn't really start unfolding until later this year and into next year. But the beach stuff is already underway. The qualifying, there's even though we mentioned Volleyball World, the FIVB still governs that side of it. And we could spend the next hour on this show arguing about why our system for how we choose our beach teams is so convoluted and 100% wrong. And we should have trials like every other sports. And they'll go, what if it's windy that day? Or what if I play bad? Well, what if you don't get to go to the Olympics in track and field because you lost by 1/100th of a second, or you got touched out in a swim race by 1/100th of a second because the other person had a better day? Thank you. That's enough. But anyway, so we've already got our Olympic tracker and people are all over that. And we're actually in the we just bought some software yesterday to make that better, to follow the beach side of things. The men's side of it, the men's and women's side of it, that'll start showing some form this week with or this summer with Volleyball Nations League for the men and the women. And, you know, but that's kind of like a long-winded, not really answering, but answering your question, Bill. Fair enough?
Fair.
Okay,
Fair.
good. Hey, Bob, I told you, Bob, they have a script. See, like, and they have a bunch of questions they want to ask us. So, Fran, you're not doing justice to part of this situation. So, number one, in 2015, a woman named Jen Loswick, whose husband, Steve Loswick, is the beach volleyball coach at Coastal Carolina, was Fran's assistant. And Jen, his wife, an accomplished volleyball person, coached our volleyball Baton Rouge team, a fabulous team with 8 future Division I players on it. One of them was Fran Flory's daughter, Lindsay, who, when Lindsay started playing for us at 11, was so skinny that when we put tights on her, they were like looses because they couldn't even, her legs couldn't even fill them up. And Lindsay is in her, I believe, 4th year as a professional volleyball player in Germany. Well,
that is correct.
In 2015, awesome. Jen Loswick, who already had 2 children, got pregnant with her 3rd and was having, I think I have this right, Fran, she both was having some medical issues where maybe coaching wasn't the best idea. And then Steve had the audacity to get another job. I believe he was going to North Florida. And we were coachless for our volleyball Baton Rouge team. And I called Fran, said, "You in your office?" And she said, "Yeah." So I'm coming over. Went to her and said, "Well, this could be your time to have to coach Lindsay Flory." And I'll never forget, Fran said, "Well, in the odd chance that she ever wanted to play here, this might be a good opportunity for the 2 of us to be on the same team and see if I could coach her." And Lindsay was not yet setting. She was not a setter as that season began when Fran took over, I want to say maybe in February. And
yeah, it was February.
Coached us through nationals. And that was one of the most fun times we ever had that year. And that team progressed. Fran just coached that 1 year. 1 year of club was enough for her. So, but, like I say, not only and Lindsay, of all people, is the only one who went to play pro. There were other really, really good players on that team who went to Madison Daigle, who actually was on a team that won an NCAA tournament match at Texas State. And a few of them went to Louisiana Lafayette. And another player went to LSU and played for Fran. It was a really, really good volleyball team. So Fran was more than just the coach at LSU. And her daughter, Lindsay, after saying she was going far, "I'm going far away." It was obvious she could play college volleyball. "I'm going far away." And then one day she didn't tell anybody. She just enrolled at LSU and walked on. The Linz, "Oh, no, I just changed my mind." So, and she played for her mom.
All very accurate. All very accurate.
And I left out the good embellishment parts. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. You guys figured it out.
As soon as you get rolling again here,
I will say
get back on track. I got another one for you about Walton, but I'm holding back.
I will say this. I want to hear stories about Fran, but you can see that part of my job is to keep Lee on track and navigate the new scripts. And so, we're pretty pumped for the Olympic qualifying, Bob. We wanted to feel comfortable. We feel comfortable, Bob, with the plan today.
Okay.
Wade, here's another thing. Here's something that you unlikely would know. So in the early 90s, when LSU's head coach was a guy named Scott Luster, they got on a roll and went to the 1990 and 91.
Monique Adams.
Both years.
Monique Adams and
his assistant coach was a very, very young Fran Flory, who later would become the head coach at Southeastern Louisiana. And then there was another school before Kentucky, right?
Yeah, but Lee, let's get back to the thing here.
Well, no, hold on. So one of the great rivalries, though, that LSU had at that time was with Houston, coached by Bill Walton. And it was a fierce rivalry because Walton had a stud team with stud players. So these guys go way back, Wade. This is not like some just get together here. And Kathy was in Texas for a while too, but before then.
Yeah. Just 89. Yeah.
Just trying to help Wade and let him see.
Wade, before he starts telling any stories on me, let me ask another question.
You don't want those.
So this partnership, is it more financial? Is it personnel? Give us a little more idea on how Volleyball Magazine is going to benefit from, you and your other partner getting involved with it.
Well, we've made a financial investment and we're equity partners in the business. And so we are, literally and emotionally stakeholders in the future success of Volleyball Magazine. So with all of that comes this relentless pursuit to be mission driven, cover the sport. And then ultimately we seek, financial partners, advertisers, sponsors, and I think innovative ways to run a modern media company. So I think you get all that approach. Gordan Redzic is worth mentioning, has got a technology background. He coaches volleyball, plays volleyball, coaches his sons, has been generous to Firstpoint Volleyball Foundation. That's how he and I got to know each other. But Gordan is been CTO of multiple publicly traded companies. He's overseen teams of 100+ engineers. 3 positions ago, he was head of product at Sleep Number Beds to develop the a smart bed, and has that kind of, we call it, global view of bringing some technology upgrades. So new website, things like that are coming. A commitment to cover some of these other parts of the sport, the boys and men's coverage, certainly passionate about that. Ongoing and deeper coverage of youth, collegiate women's volleyball, and then international volleyball. So resources is part of it. And then I will say, just to mention, I'm still at the helm and passionate about Firstpoint Volleyball Foundation. So this is a managed investment for me. And with Gordan as our executive chairman and president, and Lee in that editor role, I feel like we've got the team and building more to that team to take Volleyball Magazine to the next level. So,
yeah, because of the next point thing, or the first point, now we have to cover boys and men's volleyball. No, but
that was going to be another question I was going to ask.
No, but in all seriousness, so and I hate to be, but since you do have a script, when we killed the print and went to the digital, we came up with the slogan, and it's been our mission ever since, to be the daily digital news source for all things volleyball. And that includes, like I love NCAA women's volleyball. That's my favorite thing. But, the men, for example, juniors and club on both sides. And then the beach, we have so much beach coverage, domestic and international. And then also international pro, both in the forms of our USA teams and in terms of USA players in Europe and around the world. And in addition to all that, in the role as a co-publisher and editor, was also responsible for the marketing, the behind the scenes things. There's a lot, because we are a media company. Even though you just see it and you go, it's a website, we got a hell of a lot of moving parts. We have Stacey Farris, who's up in Massachusetts, who handles all things not editorial for us. And there are times when we feel like we're just swimming in quicksand. So in answer to your question, and what Wade said is, yeah, there's a financial investment, and that's really nice. But we now have expanded the team with an idea of being able to go do more things. And we're content driven. So the more, and content results in page views, which is what you live or die with a website. Well, we'll have more stories every day now ad infinitum because of this partnership. And you've seen it the last 2 weeks if you read the website and see it, not just because, we made our announcement today, but we made our agreement a while ago. And so many good stories on so many different fronts. Yesterday, for example, we had international USA women's pro story. We had beach coverage. We had NCAA indoor. We had a big junior story. And that's just, a day. And this happens all the time. So with Wade, with his expertise in marketing and advertising and fundraising, and then Gordan, who's a tech guy. And when you listen to Gordan, you go, ooh, we're just not playing on the same field here. This guy grasps it in a different way. The possibilities are just endless. And in a sport, again, where the up escalator is just moving so fast in a positive way, we're hitting on all cylinders and have no reason to think that we wouldn't continue to.
Well, it's interesting that, excuse me for a second there, Fran, but I think it's wonderful the way you're covering everything. And I think Firstpoint does an excellent job growing men's volleyball. And I can see how your publication needs to get out there and put men's volleyball in the front, because one of the best ways to gain momentum is for more people to even know what's happening. So many people, my women's team, club team, went to Austin for the Firstpoint men's collegiate. And I could not get my girls out of the damn college gym. All they wanted to do was go over and watch the men play. And they didn't care where they were from or who they were. They wanted to watch the men's play, and the growth of the sport is incredible. And I just see how your publication can help educate everybody in volleyball about more of what's happening. Because every time I go into a high school, the boys say, where can I go play? How come we don't have a boys team here? And we're at that point, that tipping point, where the women's game is going to cause this glacial effect in terms of creating a men's movement that will be just as large as what we see happening in the women's. On top of that, we have the Olympics coming up, and you know how the Olympics launches things. With the new fine system, it would be important that our men and women both get into the Olympics in Paris. You guys got any noise on what the qualification system is, and can you kind of educate our people on the difference and how our teams are going to get into Paris, kind of help continue to move this needle in a forward direction?
I know nothing. So Wade, if you know something, feel free.
I like our pools in both the men and the women's side. I like that the women are playing in Poland, where I think we've played well before. The men go to Japan for that tournament and that end of September to early first week of October time frame. And I think people know I co-founded Firstpoint with John Speraw, and so I do have familiarity with the trips that the team, our national men's team, have made to Japan, even the month prior to Tokyo. And I think our veterans feel comfortable there. Outside of that, I think the Olympic tracker that Lee and Stacy and Travis and the team decided to launch on Volleyball Mag, that I think helps us understand the beach Olympic qualifying. You'll see in coverage of that coming forward as to breaking down the dynamics, how VNL shapes out some of that seeding, and then I think there's a great opportunity to watch our women on North American soil in VNL and our men this summer. And it's been a while since on the men's side, Shreveport was fantastic, but I think it's exciting that we'll be able to see our national teams play on North American soil. One last mention of Firstpoint, because it is a passion that's not going away. I think it's a growing sector of our sport. But I have a journalistic background. I have a venture investing, some experience in being involved with a media company about 15 years ago. And I think the global audience is the global audience for Volleyball Mag. So this is a comprehensive approach. This is a business model that we're excited about in niche media like this. And at the end of the day, we have to tell all these stories. So, and I think it's nice to have seen the youth size of my daughter's club volleyball experience, her playing in collegiate volleyball, her playing overseas professionally, to focus on, that aspect of the sport. This isn't just about Firstpoint. So,
you mentioned Volleyball Nations League. The women's final is in Arlington, Texas this summer in early July. And if you happen to be watching this and you can make it there, I can't recommend it enough. It's absolutely fascinating to watch it at that level. And this year, the stakes are really high. And get your tickets, advance sales. I believe there's a discount. Thank you, Volleyball World. You owe me for that. And get hotel reservations and all that. I mean, Wade and I jumped on it right away to make sure we had hotel rooms to be there. And then the men are playing a preliminary round in Anaheim and also in Ottawa, Canada. So 3 of the VNL events in North America this year. And that tournament in Shreveport last year, it was unfortunate. The first round was the women. Me and about 200 of my closest friends were watching. They just didn't sell. But the volleyball was so good. So good. And it's a great opportunity this year.
Lee, you mentioned Volleyball World, and I think Volleyball World does televises Big Ten.
Well, what they're doing is picking up the Big Ten feeds and putting it on their international feed. So if you're a Volleyball World subscriber around the world, you get, I don't know if it's every Big Ten game, but selected Big Ten matches. But what a coup for the Big Ten to have scored that last summer. And I mean, there are people all over the world who are Kathy George fans who never knew who she was before that.
I'm sure.
How about Volleyball Magazine and relationship with them?
Well, we have a collaborative where we do some content sharing, and it's been a work in progress of things that we want to do. I think you've had Finn Taylor from Volleyball World on with you guys, and but he and his staff, in fact, I had emails going back and forth today about a few things. We have a lot of ideas and things that we'll expand on. Their organization has been a work in progress, especially in the so-called off season for beach, and now they're back in full force. And there were some things that I wanted to do, but I knew that we've been going on for months with Wade and Gordan, and just, now that all that's happening, I can tell you that big things will occur that'll be beneficial both for the volleyball world and for volleyballmag.com and volleyball world. Volleyball world.
So is Gordan a good connection since he has some international background, with Volleyball
Well, I
World?
think he may have watched more volleyballworld.tv than any U.S. citizen in the last 12 months, because he's a pretty big volleyball nerd, but not from his Serbian background. We've both, Gordan and I have both spent time with Finn. Gordan has met Finn before. Lee, Finn and I met in Omaha. So, I think there's a lot of exposure for our sport, and their efforts are part of that.
Yeah, and Volleyball World very much wants to be strong in the North American market, and volleyballmag.com is no doubt the best venue for that. I mean, we are the voice of the sport in this continent. So we expect big things will happen, but if I told you more, Bob, I'd have to kill you, and it's,
Are you ready to die?
Fran, did you have another question you wanted to ask before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I was just going to comment that the addition of the club and having those guys and the parents kind of log in, there's so many women that have come and men that have come before that these youth really don't know anything about. And to put that all together at one site is going to be huge for our sport, because they're going to see people that they can emulate and follow and dream to be. And so I think that's one of the best things that's going to come out of this whole collaboration that you guys have going.
That's cool. Can I tell you one thing?
It shows how big everything is, right? It shows it shows everything. It's just really great to see. So great job.
All the social media, the kids are more about TikTok and Instagram and some other stuff. We have an inordinate number of girls youth volleyball players who follow us on Twitter. We have like 54,000 Twitter followers.
Awesome.
And I think it's because their parents are making them, but even with that, they're still following the game through our Twitter and seeing all the things that go along with that, which is really intriguing to me.
Right.
Well, we welcome your input and ideas about covering volleyball.
For
Well, I've
anybody
got an
out
idea
there,
for you.
yeah.
I-
For any
I've
of
got
you
an
out there,
idea for
Lee
you.
at
course you do, Bill.
volleyballmag.com and Wade at volleyballmag.com. Send suggestions.
Or if you're interested in advertising in partners or your camp in our camp directory, contact Stacy at volleyballmag.com. And Stacy is terrific, director of operations, and she's a good person to reach out to if you're interested in partnering as well.
And I would like to apply to be, I'll move this summer to Paris, and I will be your on-site correspondent and take care of everything for the next year and a half and for the Paris Olympics if you want me to.
It's exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
This is playing.
We'll have a special
Parlay
meeting.
this into a job. He talked about this forever.
It's one of my plans to move there for a year. So if you guys want to hire me, let me know.
Do it.
Good
We
job,
go
man.
now to our correspondent in Paris, Bill Walton.
There you go.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Well, both of you guys, I have a last question for you. If you are fortune tellers, tarot readers, where do you see volleyball in the next 10 years, and the role Volleyball Magazine is going to have in the future?
Same role.
Well, boys volleyball is among the fastest growing sports in America right now. The two fastest growing youth sports in America right now are boys volleyball and lacrosse. Okay. Everything else is probably either growing or stagnant and whatever. So I imagine boys and men's will advance farther, and especially because of the efforts of Firstpoint, which has been really critical in that. More colleges are fielding the sport, subsequently offering scholarships in some form or fashion, and that drives that. I think we'll just keep getting better and stronger in the sport as Americans, because we keep getting better, bigger, stronger athletes playing from a younger age group and progressing through. For us, I mean, I hope you talk to us in going into Los Angeles and say, wow, it's so cool that how many more millions of page views you have now than you did when we first talked to you back in that time in 2023, because you've been so global. And I also hope, and then this would go to Wade, it's well documented how tough it is to be a media company in today's world. We're actually bucking the trend, but in a positive way, but because we're niche in a sport that embraces it so strongly. So I really hope that we revisit this years from now and go, wow, these guys really had a media company that thrived and prospered and kicked ass and took names all the way, through it. But some of that's, I'm the editorial director. I'm the editor. I write the stories. I assign the stories. I make sure we have the content. A lot of the business side of it is going to fall on Wade, and he's up to the job. Aren't you, Wade?
I think there's a lot of people in volleyball, the sport of volleyball, making money, striving to make money. So that's a goal. But we're a mission-driven company at the end of the day. Growing the game is it's an outcome that I think quality coverage and media in the sport provides. And then I think we should be a contributor, a major contributor, certainly the witness to the evolution of women's professional volleyball as a tier 1 sport in America. So the coverage of those leagues, number one, it's exciting. So the evolution of our athletes to becoming celebrities and known throughout youth around the world is an outcome that I think we have a direct mission to accomplish. It's unfortunate that my daughter's 16s teams or 17s teams wouldn't know the women on the national team. So I think we've got a unique opportunity to tell the stories of our individuals that are involved with this sport, the coaches, the GMs, the team owners, and especially the athletes. And I think that takes ongoing feature type coverage, but with some emphasis on, let's celebrate our heroes. I think we'll be opinionated too. I think you should count on us to be, I wouldn't say edgy, but this is not like a promotional vehicle. Like, we're going to cover what is real going on in the sport of volleyball. And that's flavorful sometimes. So I think it should be fun as well. And that's my last sort of thought is volleyball is fun. It's just this dynamic sport that we should celebrate at the end of the day. But yeah, media will be mission driven, but we're going to have some fun along the way too.
There's one thing too.
Made a case for Bill in Paris again. So
yeah, right. I can throw down the gauntlet because I've said this to them and I've said it publicly and privately. ESPN drives so much of what happens in sports in America now. It's just a fact. ESPN controls, decides, steers, promotes, can if ESPN wants to put cornhole on ESPN2 on a Saturday afternoon, cornhole will grow because of it. And ESPN has decided in the last 15 years that softball on the women's side, especially the NCAA tournament, was going to be a big deal. And it is, because ESPN decided it, not because it's a good sport, not because of anything else, but ESPN decided it. It happens to be a good sport, and their tournament in Oklahoma City is good. ESPN has decided that women's basketball is very, very important for a lot of reasons, politically, socially, in the culture of America. And ESPN will put NCAA basketball that the women play on ABC and on ESPN regularly. When ESPN decides that volleyball, which is a better sport than the other two, played by better athletes, prettier to watch, a more exciting game, when they decide, yeah, we can put NCAA women's volleyball on a Sunday afternoon on ESPN or ABC, and we can do that regularly through the season, and then we can expand our NCAA coverage so that our 32 first-round matches are not all on ESPN Plus, which they are, except for the Longhorn Network, and that's going away after this year when Texas joins the SEC because they have to give it up. So ESPN is a big, big component out of this. The next thing, too, is that you mentioned the Olympics. We have 4 opportunities to win gold medals. Last time out, we got 2. We got the women's indoors and we got the beach on the women's side. It would help us a lot if we could do better on beach on the men's side, and we could do better on men's indoor. You know, it's just a fact. There's a momentum grabber from that. So those are all things that we're rooting for. So I'm rooting for ESPN to see the light, and I'm rooting for our Olympic teams to do really well, in addition to everything else. Gauntlet thrown down.
Well, listen, I'd like to thank Lee and Wade for coming on today and expanding on Volleyball Magazine and where it's going and what we can be looking forward to. Thank both of you guys for taking time out to do this.
Yeah, thanks for all you do. You guys are great. We're really excited about it.
Well, thanks for giving us the platform, and it's really fun for me to hang out with 4 people who I really like. And Bob, I haven't known you as long, but I've known these other guys a really long time, especially Franny. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, thank you.
Guys.
All right, we'll transition to our buzz reaction. All right, and we'll start with Kathy. What's your thoughts?
First of all, I'm thrilled about it. I think that they're right on target. The timing of it is perfect. And, you know, the volleyball is gaining such momentum, and you see them in their coverage. They're only going to help that movement in everything. And knowing the world as we start to see pro volleyball joining here in the United States, you're going to just start to see it everything more globally, because a lot of these players will have played in both places and watching the Olympics. And I think it's just perfect timing. Boys volleyball, I couldn't be more excited about it. The state of Michigan has now 57 boys teams, and they didn't used to have high school boys volleyball. So thrilled with that growth and just the overall excitement about the sport. So I appreciate what they're doing. Couldn't be happier about it.
Fran, thoughts you have?
Well, I think that oftentimes we don't, as a general sport population, understand the people behind the scenes that are driving the bus. And these two particularly are going to be super influential as volleyball continues to grow, especially on the men's and boys side. You know, Lee invests in that, and certainly Wade does as well. And, you know, as I said before, just name recognition of our athletes in our sport is vital for people to understand, not just the student athletes, but the parents, to see these are quality people, they're quality athletes, and this is a quality sport. And I want my child to follow in those footsteps or have the opportunity, and here's how I do it. So I think they'll blaze the pathway for many with this collaboration and partnership. It's super exciting.
It's going to catapult it. Yep.
Bill?
Well, I think that what's interesting is, for years, the NBA has tried to be more global. They play exhibitions in Europe and China, Japan. Once the NBA was allowed to basically form, through USA Basketball, form the national team for our basketball. You see the NFL playing games in London, and they had a European league for a while. Baseball just finished the World Championships wherever they were playing. Japan played USA Pros. There's this movement in all pro sports to try and to quit thinking of yourselves as just the USA, but to actually the World Championships being the World Championships. Well, I think volleyball is actually a little farther ahead than a lot of those sports at being international. And we could actually get to the point where there's a true world champion and everybody cares about it much faster than all the other sports. And I could see in 10 years, the Pro League isn't just in the US. The Pro League is different conferences by continent. And then at the end of the year, there is a true world championships in those pro leagues, and USA Volleyball and Volleyball Magazine kind of leading the charge of the whole thing. And so the growth will not be a US Pro League, but the US Pro League will be one of the conferences in the World League. And it's headed that way. You see it in the CEV championships. You see it in BNL. And volleyball is going to be the first really true international pro sports league, not just a USA pro sports league.
That's really an interesting
Really
observation, because I think other than soccer, you're right. I mean, volleyball is very much an international sport. It might have been invented in the United States, but it's really been developed, in every country in the world.
Professional, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that the key to part of this whole world thing is that the U.S. is now, because of its economic engine, is now entering the pro sphere. Because once that happens, that's the last piece of the puzzle that potentially can bring the whole thing together, because you need countries with money sponsoring the sports. China sponsors it, Europe sponsors it, South America sponsors it. The last big piece of the puzzle is us. And once we get in there, that's why you see investment coming from Europe and even Asia into the US, into our volleyball programs, because they want us to succeed, because it'll launch the whole platform worldwide. We spend a lot of money and they want us in there.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Kathy
we've had
now is concerned about getting some of the athletes from these other countries.
What'd you say,
For
Franny?
sure. I said we've had other professional leagues try to start, but the models that are being proposed and put together now are such more business models with growth potential and a better future or vision for the future. So I'm super excited for our sport, and just on the women's side, I can eventually see the men's professional league being formed here as well, and with the growth of the guys, and just a really, really important time for our sport in this country.
Agreed.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing how many people now are involved and actually make a living in the sport of volleyball. I mean, where before you used to know everyone that was involved in the sport. I mean, literally knew every person. All right, now there's people that are coming out from other industries getting involved in the sport. And we've spoken to some of them on previous shows, and different companies like 3-Step or Love Volleyball, or any number, Nations Academy. There's a lot of companies out there that are getting involved. There's a lot of individuals that have left their professions to run volleyball clubs, all over. It's quite amazing now.
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am about this league that we're in and what we're doing, and just being a part of it now. I can see where it's going, and it is different, Franny. It's different in so many ways about the sustainability of it and how serious everybody is and how so many people are getting behind it. Even going over, I went to Ohio State to watch Athletes Unlimited play, and just the amount of people that were there representing the pro league and just the formation of that, and everybody's coming together to do their part. So it's pretty exciting to see the growth. And just as these weeks go on, more and more will happen, and it's very exciting times.
Well, for me, it's the missing link in our country, right? Mm-hmm. We have everything else. We have the club program with tons of people playing. We have great collegiate volleyball with all of our great players going to Europe to play, to further their career. So how can we not have this in this country? So excited, and certainly excited for you to be part of it, Kath. There's some great people, Cecile being part, a lot of people that are just the great volleyball people that have really built it from the ground up. So thank you for continuing to give back to our sport, for sure.
Absolutely. It's a riot. It's been good. It's been fun.
So I think it's great that volleyball, that Lee finally is getting some help. He's been doing a tremendous job with Volleyball Magazine, and he recognized that he needs to get more people involved, because it's just getting bigger and bigger. So I think it's going to help Volleyball Magazine's ability to really cover every aspect of the game and really report on it.
Well, yeah, to cover the NFL, you only have to cover 32 teams.
Yeah.
Lee's got to cover probably over 100 countries. Forget 32 teams. I mean, the ability to do all that stuff, I mean, it's massive. And that he's been able to do what he's doing, he's right when he says he's in quicksand trying to handle everything. So that they can actually maybe hire some people to help do some of these things and cover all the different areas is only going to make it more interesting for everybody, not less interesting, that's for sure.
Especially for the Paris Olympics. I think they need to have a correspondent over there. What do you think?
I think they do too. A full-time correspondent living in Paris.
Who abides in Houston somewhere.
do coffee in the morning. There'll be a session on places to go to eat while you're here. Look at the venue, look at it's being built. I mean, I cover it from the ground up, from the beginning to the end. I can't see anything wrong with that. So I'm still putting myself out there for that position if they got it.
Okay, so I think for next week, our hope is that we're going to have a couple of collegiate coaches on that have had, the pro team, at least, Athletes Unlimited pro team in their gym. So maybe we could, talk with them a little bit, and hopefully, if we can get the executive director on, that'd be great too, to get both their perspectives.
All right. Well, that sounds like a plan.
All right, we guys are all ready for that. I'll start
Absolutely.
working on it now.
Sounds good, Bob. We'll get that out and see who's on.
All right,